Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist, and I'll be hosting today's show. And for the first graphic here, again, no hazardous weather graphics because there are no watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere in the state for advisory, warning, watch type weather through tonight, tomorrow, and probably through Wednesday as well. Anyway, fire danger chart here still shows an area of extreme fire danger up here over the northeast interior. Some areas did pick up some rain. Fort Yukon, last 12 hours had 0.15 of an inch, so that's a wetting rain plus, and about the same amount fell over at Anaktuvik. So really about the same as yesterday, maybe a little bit farther to the south here on the southern part of it. Otherwise, the areas that got the rain obviously would have less fire danger than what was seen yesterday. And a little bit more expanded area here over the Noatak Valley of some high fire danger. Otherwise, the remainder of the state looking pretty good fire danger-wise as compared to how high it could be this time of year. And for the next chart, or the next slide here showing a webcam shot, and this is Gamble out in St. Lawrence Island. As you can see, clear skies, ceilings, visibility is unlimited out there, and even though still have some snow right there on that hill just northeast of the structures there. And this is, I believe, a northeast looking shot. Anyway, VFR actually for all of St. Lawrence Island, and that extended up through the Bering Strait and into the Chukchi Sea, I believe. And on the satellite here, you can see as the sun rises, you can see the clear skies out there extending up in through the Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula, eastward here across the Selawik and Kobuk Valley areas. And then you pick up the clouds, showers here going on, or building this afternoon here with some isolated thunderstorms starting to develop as well for the central eastern Brooks Range area. A little bit of clearing occurring out on the north slope, otherwise kind of a generally cloudy, sort of chilly day up there. Temperatures 30s to into the 40s. Lots of clearing occurring here with the Gulf of Alaska, and that extends, of course, across south central Alaska and then on southwest across Kodiak Island. Just a few skiffs of clouds skirting the east and southeast side there a little bit due to this mass of clouds here. But Bristol Bay and up into the southwest interior, and then developing showers and mostly developing showers here over the southern, or in the Kuskokwim Valley along the Alaska Range. As of mid-afternoon, thunderstorm activity was mostly from the Talkeetnas, some lightning strikes there, into the Copper River Basin, and on up into the central interior toward the eastern Brooks Range, and of course on into the Yukon. Otherwise, pretty good frontal system bringing 45-mile-an-hour wind gusts to Shemya this afternoon. The rain has yet to show up there just to the south with the frontal. You can see the back edge of the front right through there, and that's going to be heading eastward and gradually weakening as it approaches the eastern Aleutians. So the gales will remain out through tonight for the western Aleutians, and then be small craft advisories thereafter. And for the southeast coast, more rain spreading in. Again, southwest flow, jet aimed right at your area there. And here's a warm front associated with that, and they had anywhere from 0.15 to 1/3 of an inch of precipitation here across the southern southeast coast. Some areas had less, and few areas had more. And then light rain amounts all the way up in toward Lynn Canal. Juneau picking up some light rain today. I think it was 0.07 of an inch, same 12-hour period, only about 400 so at Sitka. But that's going to increase as moisture will continue to move northeastward. And today the thunderstorms, especially along this trough here, and then they cut off right about there, and you're looking at just developing cumulus and some scattered showers farther to the south to nothing at all. Bristol Bay, except sunshine, Cook Inlet sunshine, even in the Gulf of Alaska, Middleton Island, on up into Prince William Sound, and lightning strikes to a lesser extent here over the Copper River Basin areas. And the system out west, again, the tighter gradient there, seeing gusts 45 miles per hour there over the Shemya and Attu area. And for tonight, that front lifts northeast a little bit there and pushes eastward. And as it pushes eastward, it weakens considerably. You can see probably not even small craft advisory level winds enter the Adak area tonight, but definitely a chance of rain and fog will. And otherwise, eastern northern Bering Sea, light winds, low clouds, areas of fog, possibly drizzle, some isolated showers along this trough axis, and again, thunderstorms diminishing, but kind of persisting here throughout the night in an isolated state along that trough axis, and then some scattered isolated showers on toward morning. More clearing back to the west, more clearing up to the north, areas of low clouds, fog in the Arctic coast. This system pushing northward here, actually the upper level low itself in the surface, tracking northeastward, and rain continues across all the panhandle tonight, increases over the northern central areas, and starts to pull back to the west here. And that's going to bring a chance of rain to the east side of Kodiak Island later tonight, late tonight, and toward morning. Be right on the edge there, as well as Cordova, kind of on the western edge as well. Otherwise, no change here, south central Alaska. And for the outlook on Tuesday, this is the same front, not another one. The whole system kind of slows down here a little bit and weakens. So periods of light rain or intermittent light rain, cloudy skies, possible fog continues. Will be lighter than what you'll see tomorrow. And then showers developing right off the coast there, kind of scattered. And then this area of moisture is still extending back to the west, but won't even, the way it looks right now, won't even get into Prince William Sound, maybe Cordova eastward, and less in the way of thunderstorm activity, but generally the same pattern, except eastern upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, into the northeast Copper River Basin, possibly over the Talkeetnas, just a threat, more likely though up toward Denali, and on down into the southwest mountains. Should be unstable enough and temperatures warm enough to possibly trigger a thunderstorm in some of the taller clouds there, and some clearing along the southwest coast once again. Another nice day for the Alaska Peninsula. Dry, light winds, high pressure holding over the northern Bering Sea. Probably see some clouds and fog return here, St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait. Otherwise, partly mostly sunny Seward Peninsula. Risk of a shower from Nome to White Mountain. And then this Arctic trough just skirting the Arctic coast up there, the central coast, maybe a little bit of mixed moisture possibly as that scoots on by to the east. And then for Wednesday, this system slides eastward here, and we have wet conditions from Adak all the way into the Alaska Peninsula, but nothing heavy, and definitely winds just about a non-factor now with that system. Becoming northeast, possibly 20-25 knots out west, light winds. And again, back possible sunshine here, southwest coast and back St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait, eastward across the interior. And another trough brings some chillier air this time down maybe to the central eastern Beaufort Sea coast for mixed light, real light precipitation there with no accumulation. And again, it stays wet with a front that's stuck off the southeast coast, so periods of rain, light rain, fog, drizzle, definitely cloudy, and isolated afternoon showers over the Kenai Peninsula. Lows tonight for the southeast coast, 50 to 55, 45 to 50 southern Alaska, as well as the central interior areas with lows near 50 all the way down in toward Kuskokwim Bay. Otherwise, lower 30s on the Arctic coast and 35 to 40-ish on the north slope. Highs for tomorrow, about like today, Beaver 76 degrees. You may see 76 tomorrow, and we've got Eagle tagged at that value. Otherwise, 70 to 75, right on down again toward the southwest coast. Cooler to the northwest and not so much cooler to the southeast. 70, 75 to Matanuska Valley, possibly Kenai Peninsula. 60s for the Copper River Basin and the southeast coast stuck in the 50s. And for the lows the following morning, not much change. 45 to 50 here over southern Alaska, cooler Copper River Basin. 40s, lower 50s interior, lower 30s, maybe mid 30s there on the Arctic coast with no change over the panhandle. 40s, lower 50s, followed by highs. Seeing a couple of more 60s now showing up there over the southeast coast, but still not much of a warm up. 70s through the interior from the Canadian border all the way down toward Kuskokwim Bay once again, and then cooler to the northwest and mid 30s for the central eastern Arctic coast. And we're looking at 50s, give or take there, well, definitely into the 50s for the Alaska Peninsula, right around there for the Pribilofs, and then 40s for the Aleutians, and lower 40s St. Lawrence Island, as well as the northwest coastal areas. Otherwise, the central eastern Arctic coast, still in the mid to upper 30s, but the north slope, especially on the west side, they're trying to warm up a little bit. Actually, you could see maybe 70s right up into the Noatak Valley there, and probably just upper 50s for the Brooks Range.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First aviation graphic here for Tuesday morning. Yeah, a lot of IFR here out over the Bering Sea and then extending down over the central Aleutians. Not too bad here from the eastern Aleutians, some IFR on the north shore of the Alaska Peninsula, but good VFR, fair distance off the coast here of the off the southwest coast. Pribilofs right on the edge of the IFR. VFR, the interior right up to the Arctic coast. Look for IFR along and just off the eastern central Arctic coast tomorrow to start. And then IFR in over the southern panhandle along the coast and the east side of Kodiak. And for the afternoon, things improve a little bit. Maybe even the marginal VFR will pull off to the east here of Kodiak Island. Extending northeastward, we've got IFR from roughly Yakutat in across areas of the panhandle along with some marginal conditions. Eastern North Gulf Coast, possibly into the Wrangell Mountains, maybe some marginal VFR. That'll develop later in the day with the convection, otherwise VFR until you get to the western Arctic coast. And for Wednesday morning, IFR here all across the panhandle, the Gulf, and much of the Northeast Pacific actually, right up into the coast, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, in toward Passage Canal. Marginal VFR coming westward to some extent into Turnagain Arm and along the crest of the Chugach Mountains. Possibly into the southern Copper River Basin, especially over toward the east side there. Otherwise, VFR in the interior, IFR along the Arctic coast, down in toward the southeastern Chukchi Sea, and then IFR out here over the Bering Sea in across the western central Aleutians. VFR along the southwest coast, Yukon Delta coast, Seward Peninsula, VFR. Wednesday morning, that continues, VFR over the interior and along and off the coast here, Bristol Bay VFR, most of the Alaska Peninsula good. Some IFR here from the eastern Aleutian areas to roughly Adak into the Bering Sea, and the southeast coast still looking pretty marginal except for IFR to the north and along over toward the eastern border. Passes Anatuvik-Natigan tomorrow, another VFR day coming up once again there, and for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR either approach, same forecast for rainy, VFR flying there, and for windy, no problems, VFR, and Isabel as well, VFR. Mentasta, marginal, or VFR, maybe there's a chance you go see marginal VFR, depending on how heavy the clouds get, of course, low the bases are. That'd be in the late afternoon or early evening with risk of thunderstorms, but Tanita, VFR, and for Portage, same forecast looking good through that pass, but Chilkoot and White, IFR. And for the freezing levels here, about roughly 8,000 to 10,000 feet across the southeast coast there, kind of aligning itself with the upper level jet. And really no significant gradient at all here over Alaska. Up here a little bit cooler with that Arctic jet that's just grazing the central Arctic coast. And so really no big push of chilly air coming down with that, and about 4,000 feet out over the central and southwest Bering. For icing, that front weakening, but it'll keep a pretty good threat of some light to isolated moderate rime icing in the forecast here for the Adak area and scattering out back to the west. And then with the convection thunderstorm activity, areas of mixed icing with that, but nothing really widespread. And then more widespread could be considerable moderate, at least a zone of that coming up toward the eastern North Gulf Coast tomorrow, as well as the southern panhandle with isolated moderate rime icing in between in the shaded area, but that all above 8,000 feet. Taking a look at the jet stream, this upper level low, about this position today, that's going to track northward, northeastward and weaken, and the jet's going to reorient itself and keep moisture flowing into the panhandle until that thing weakens and moves through, and then this weak ridging here will tend to dry things out after that happens. Otherwise, light flow here across the Bering Sea and interior Alaska, and there's that 70-knot jet that's just barely reaching the central Arctic coast. 9,000 feet south, 30 knots into the panhandle and off the coast, 5 to 15 or 5 to 10. Southern Alaska, not too bad. Westerlies is 20 to 30 knots on the Arctic coast there due to that rather intense storm to the north, and 15 to 25, maybe as high as 35 knots out over the Aleutians, western Aleutians. Same pattern at 3,000 feet. So jump right to the turbulence. Occasional moderate chop, Atka westward to Shimian at 2, and light to isolated moderate for Kodiak Island as well as the southern southeast coast. And after the break, I'll return with the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us here today is Eric Stevens from the Geographic Information Network of Alaska at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, GINA for short. And Eric, you frequently come on the show to tell us about these really cool things that we're doing with satellites over Alaska and how we can use these really awesome tools. But I'm thinking all the while there has to be a mad scientist somewhere working on the next cool thing in the satellite laboratory. What is being developed today?
Right. Well, you know, when I was a kid growing up in the boonies in North Dakota there, on Sunday after church, the old people, like my parents and their parents, would gather and have coffee and talk. And I kind of eavesdropped on them a little bit. And the theme of a lot of these conversations seemed to be, well, isn't it amazing what they can do these days, someone would say.
Sure.
And I was thinking, well, I don't know, I was too young.
Right.
Well, now I'm old enough in the weather satellite business.
You can remember when.
The new generation of weather satellites, I'm starting to say, isn't it amazing what they can do these days? Because it's always improving.
Yes.
Maybe an analogy here is like television. Television started in black and white, then it went to color. Analog signal transitioned to digital here a number of years ago. Standard definition becomes high definition. Right. Well, weather satellites are changing too. First weather satellites went up around 1960, not that long ago. No. It's comparatively young science. And every time a new series of satellite is launched, we learn from the past, so the mad scientists decide, well, we could make the next satellite even better in such and such a respect.
Yes.
And now the United States is on the verge of launching, or in progress of launching, a series of new geostationary satellites that are better than ever before.
Okay.
Let's take a look at some of the previews of what these new satellites can do.
Peek inside the lab here, okay.
Yeah, and so we'll peek in, and here are some mad scientists and mad technicians dressed in bunny suits. This is, believe it or not, this is the business end of a weather satellite under construction in a clean room. You don't want a speck of dust on the lens of a weather satellite's camera. So this is done in a clean environment. They are building a geostationary satellite there.
Oh, cool.
This new generation of satellites, if you had to answer the question, why are these better? Why do we care?
Okay.
You could answer it with 3 words: faster, better, more. The new generation of satellites are faster than the older ones. The images are sharper, they're better, and there's more spectral channels. We'll talk about that.
Any one of these called Steve Austin sounds faster, better, stronger.
Yeah. You know what though? These things cost more than $6 million.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're pricey, but they are an essential tool for the Weather Service to fulfill its mission of protecting lives and property.
Exactly.
You got to have the tool to do the job, and it helps all of us when we get the accurate forecast, the warning in time, and this is the tool. Faster. On left here, we see what the old generation of satellites could scan in 5 minutes. On the right, that's what you get in 5 minutes, the whole planet, or at least one side of it. So it's faster. That means you can take more images over a given amount of time and make smoother movie loops out of that. Because animating movie loops really helps you highlight a feature that maybe you can't see as well in a single image.
Absolutely does, yep.
Let's zoom into a small piece of real estate like Texas.
Sure.
And we can see here a satellite that has a 1-minute movie loop visible light. You can see thunderstorms boiling there.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, the rippling of the top of the thunderstorm. This is a fun movie loop. We're going to be able to see things like this more and more often because of the new satellites being generated. Some things are only evident in animation. So that's faster. Well, what's better? We're able to now have sharper imagery than before. The Japanese have a satellite that uses the same imager that is on the new generation of satellites that America is launching too. An imager, that's just a word for camera. It's the camera on a weather satellite. We have something called the Advanced Baseline Imager.
Sounds important.
ABI. It's important enough, it has an acronym. Everything's an acronym. Well, an ABI-like instrument is here over the Western Pacific, and we can see this color image. This is what a human eye might see if you were riding on the satellite. But it's a little bit fuzzy. With new technology, you can post-process the image taken by the satellite to highlight and sharpen some of the features. So this image here of the Western Pacific then becomes this image. Thanks to the processing techniques, yes, this is the newest technology. So we've got a new satellite that can provide better data than ever before. And on the ground, we can process it better than before as well to really sharpen up the imagery and to give us a better view of the weather than ever before. So faster and better and More. What do we mean by more? Well, on the older generation of satellites, the imager, the camera, had 5 slices of the spectral pie, visible imagery, infrared imagery, something we can't see from the human eye. A lot of different slices of the pie. We're going from 5. The new imager has 16 slices. Each slice has its own relevance. Some are best for volcanic ash, for smoke, for dust, for telling the difference between smoke and dust, which can look similar under some infrared channels, but other ones bring out certain things. All of these 16 bands are important. In fact, some of the mad scientists, they didn't want 16, they wanted 24. There's always more you can do. But that'll be the next generation of satellites. So now we say, isn't it amazing what we can do these days? And you know what? It makes you think, well, what's the future going to be like too? It's so important to be able to know what's going on now in the weather. If you're going to forecast the future, you got to know where things are now. And satellites are the way to see that, especially in Alaska, where we don't have as many observations down on the ground. The satellites fill in the holes.
Yeah, really important stuff. And I love hearing about what we can see right now, but I love thinking about what is possible in the future. It's amazing stuff. And since you paid for it, it's a good time to learn about it. If you'd like, check out the website at www.goes-r.gov. And as I understand, it's a really easy website to use.
Oh yeah, a lot of good information about what these new satellites mean to Americans. And it's the Weather Service's mission to protect lives and property, and this is the tool how to do it.
Cool stuff, Eric. Thanks so much for sharing that with us today, and thank you for joining us right here in Alaska Weather Facts. We'll see you next time. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Really not much change from yesterday in Monday's sea ice analysis when compared to Sunday's. And we still have this area of thinner ice or somewhat open water extending now from the more open area to the west and the more open area here to the east. But there's still, as I mentioned yesterday, quite a bit of brash ice in there. So it's anything but smooth sailing on through. Otherwise, again, not much change going on and probably won't be for another couple of days. And for the coastal water forecast, small craft advisories on the south coast there due to southerly winds at 25 knots. And that same pattern also existing over the Clarence Strait area. Central north coast, south 20 knots, becoming southeast farther to the north, seas at about 8 to 9 feet. South 20 for Clarence Strait, and small craft advisory, especially in the afternoon for Lynn Canal with southeast winds at 25 knots and 5-foot seas. And then for Wednesday, winds come down 10 knots from the west or the south-southwest on the south coast, south-southeast about 15 north side, and south to southeast, give or take, really light there for the southern inside waters at about 10 knots with seas 2 feet or less, and south at 20 for northern Lynn Canal, 4-foot seas. For Cook Inlet, we've got really variable winds, 10 knots tomorrow, about covers it pretty well, and seas pretty slight at 2 feet, northeast 10 for Kamishak Bay. Small craft advisories here due to that approaching front just off the east-southeast there. So northeast 25 from the Barren Islands up across the western North Gulf Coast, turning east on the east side here across Middleton Island, 25 knots. Light winds for Prince William Sound. And then for Wednesday, light easterlies for Prince William Sound, 10 knots, no more, and slight seas, east 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Northeast winds here on the west side down across the Barren Islands, still only 15 knots. And Kamishak Bay, we've got northeast at 10, and then south of the Forelands, southwest at 10, and a little more of a breeze, south 15 in the afternoon for northern Cook Inlet with 3-foot seas. Bristol Bay, southwest 10 tomorrow, otherwise the Alaska Peninsula, north to northwest 10 to 15 knots with 2 to 4-foot sea or 2 to 7-foot seas. And then from Castle Cape up to Sitkinak, north at 20, seas 8 feet, northeast 25, small craft advisories are for the east side of Kodiak Island. And for the outlook on Wednesday, light westerly, Shelikof Strait, and a northerly breeze at 15 along the eastern marine zones here for Kodiak, and west 10 knots. Sitkinak all the way to Cape Saratchev. Bering Sea side of the peninsula northwest at 10 with seas at 1 foot. And also Bristol Bay west 10 and seas 1 foot. For the Fox Islands, southeast 10 for Unalaska Island, and then the west side toward Nikolsky, Unmak Island will go southeast 20, 4 to 6 foot seas. And for the central Aleutians here, due to that front, again, barely, I think, getting up to 25 knots sustained here without how weak it looks gradient-wise, but still, small craft advisories are in the forecast, 6 to 11 foot seas, and easterlies at 30 for the far western zones. And then for Wednesday, northeast 25 there, or 20 to 25 knots, but definitely no higher. That's a high-end forecast there, and then north 20 here from Kiska over toward Adak, otherwise Adak and Atka, specifically easterlies of 15 to 20, and east-southeast 20 knots for the Fox Islands. Southwest coast, light winds 10 to 15 knots out of the north, and otherwise light southerly winds there for the Pribilof. Same thing for St. Matthew Island with those seas not too bad there, 1 to 3 feet, and northwest at 10. St. Lawrence Island as well as Norton Sound. And kind of a variable wind pattern here. The Pribilofs into the southwest coast at about 10 knots, but north of Nunivak Island on down across and over to St. Matthew Island, northeast at 15, and then back down to north at 10, St. Lawrence Island to pretty almost calm there in Norton Sound. And for the central eastern coast, southwest 20 knots tomorrow, lighter, more westerly over toward Demarcation Point, west side west at 20, and west-northwest 10 to 15 knots there from Wales all the way to Cape Beaufort. And then the outlook for Wednesday, light westerlies from Wales all the way up the west side. We'll pick it up to northwest 15 there for the central coast. And eastern Beaufort Sea coast, westerlies 20 knots, seas in the open water areas 4 feet. And for tonight, again, rain that's currently going on over the northern panhandle begin to increase and continue, and it'll stay wet down over the southern areas there, periods of rain throughout the night tonight. And now this whole area is trying to push west-northwestward as the upper level trough with the surface low tries to come northeastward as well. So rain may get as far west as Cordova.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.